The story kicks off in the age of streaming, where everything is recorded and broadcast. It doesn't matter where you go or what you're doing. Your entire life could end up as content for the whole world to see. However, with so many people doing the same thing, the content got pretty repetitive and boring. People were basically just ripping each other off, recycling the same old ideas. I know you just thought of someone. And so the daily grind continued, same as always, with nothing new on the horizon. The same ordinary people living the same old lives. And everyone was getting sick and tired of the same old planet Earth. Until one day, beings from another planet showed up to shake things up. They were alien species who arrived to bring the excitement everyone was craving. When they appeared 3 years ago, humanity was scared of what might happen. But they were actually from peaceful civilizations and didn't want any trouble. They just wanted to show off their totally different fantasy-filled worlds. And the streams showing their extraordinary lives became a massive hit. Then our guy shows up, finding all this hilarious and enjoying the streams. Narrator, he reveals he used to be a streamer too, but quit after a certain incident. And now he lives locked in his room, just watching streams all day. Sound familiar? Our guy has no job and zero motivation to do absolutely anything. However, he knows this slacker life can't last forever. But suddenly, a super loud noise interrupts his thoughts. He thinks his computer volume is too high and tries to turn it down. But the noise doesn't stop and Subai is left wondering what's going on. Until the wall of his room explodes right in front of him. Our hero is on the floor, totally confused and with no idea what just happened. And through the dust, he spots a white-haired girl on the floor, who here would love for this to happen to them. Let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, in the stream he was watching, the chat was going wild over the scene. The girl then looks at him all embarrassed and tries to say hi. Narrator, she desperately apologizes for the wall she just obliterated. Subai grabs his phone to call the cops, but the girl stops him. Then she grabs our hero, begging him not to report her. The girl explains that aliens can't commit crimes or they get deported on the spot. These beings are basically like something out of a medieval fantasy too, and that's why she's desperately pleading for our hero's mercy. Subai then asks her to calm down so they can talk things out properly. So he sits down with her and asks if this was all for a stream. Right after, he wants to know how much she got paid to destroy his wall. The girl gets all awkward, not knowing how to answer the question. Our guy then takes a guess that she made around 5 million won. But she reveals she actually only made 50,000 won, which leaves him stunned. Subai can't believe she made such a huge mess for such a small amount of money. Narrator, he then decides to call the landlord, but the girl seems to have a problem with that. Turns out, she lives there too and is way behind on her rent. Because of that, she promises she'll fix everything. She just needs a little time. Kneeling on the floor, she begs for a chance to sort things out. Our protagonist thinks for a bit and decides to give her a 1-week deadline. The girl is overjoyed and grateful, promising she'll do her absolute best. Our guy gives the girl a hug, thinking she'll pay for the repairs soon. Because if she doesn't keep her end of the deal, he's going straight to the landlord. However, curiosity gets the better of him, and he decides to take a look. He gets interested in his noisy neighbor's stream. After watching her streams for a week, he's formed an opinion. The girl speaks way too softly and can barely thank people for the donations she gets. On top of that, she can't even do the challenges people request. Seeing this, our protagonist realizes she's a lost cause. He thinks her stream is terrible, so he decides to go talk to his neighbor. He walks into her room and the streamer gets spooked by the visit. Subai tells her the 1-week deadline is up, but she asks for more time. But our hero isn't buying it and says he'll handle it another way. Another way? What's our MC scheming now? Desperate, she grabs him, but he tells her that her stream is just plain bad. The girl replies that she just needs more time since she only recently started. But Subai states with absolute certainty that more time won't fix the problem. The girl defends herself, saying she's pretty and has a nice voice. She also doesn't get why nobody watches her, since she plays cool games. And to top it off, she thinks her stories are entertaining and that she should be popular. With a smile on her face, she insists that her stream is really good and fun. The girl then blames the viewers for not recognizing her immense talent. Subai loses his patience and yells that she's awful and does nothing right. He points out that her voice is too quiet and that she doesn't interact with the chat. Our hero complains that she can't even read her fans' messages properly. Then he starts giving her direct orders about her posture and her hair. Next, our guy tells her to sit down, and the girl obeys instantly. Narrator, he continues the training, telling her to always watch the chat and switch topics. Our protagonist also says she needs to study other streams to improve. The girl then yells back that she understood all his orders. Finally, the stream ends, and the girl is completely wiped out. She thought she was going to lose her mind with that training, but then something happened. The chat's reaction was explosive. Everyone loved the girl's new attitude. And the donations didn't stop coming for a single second during the live stream. Plus, for the first time ever, she made it onto the most watched streams list. Our protagonist says his goodbyes, asking her to fix the wall soon. The girl then realizes that with his help, becoming a famous streamer is possible. She understands she might even be able to achieve her ultimate goal, and she formally introduces herself as the Great Demon King Ale. Our guy just stares at her, not knowing what to say. The narrator, Ale, then looks him in the eyes and asks him to be her manager. Subai is shocked and wonders if he heard her right about the Demon King thing. The story then flashes back 3 years to when the aliens arrived. Back then, most of the races that came to Earth were pretty friendly. However, the people from the Demon Planet were not nice at all. For that reason, sending the Demon King back was a tough mission. In the present, Subai wonders if this girl is that same Demon King. Narrator is lost in thought while Ale waits nervously for an answer. But he just laughs and tells her to stop with the blatant lies. Subai says there's no way the Demon King is here, but she insists it's true. He then calls her a self-proclaimed Demon King and tells her to get lost. Ale gets furious and asks why he doesn't want to be her manager. Our guy replies that nobody would accept with her saying such weird things. So he issues a challenge, saying he'll only accept if she's really the Demon King. The girl gets all excited about the proposal and tells him not to back out. Our protagonist was about to confirm the deal, but suddenly something strange happens. Out of nowhere, the sky turns dark and lightning starts striking all over the city. Next, Ale starts floating in the air with a purple aura around her. Subai is on the ground, completely terrified and unable to believe what he's seeing. The girl then shows off her power and proves she really is the true Demon King. Our hero is scared out of his wits and begs her to stop, admitting he was wrong. But it looks like she's not stopping anytime soon, and he realizes he's in some serious trouble. The dust settles, and we see that her power demonstration was pretty intense. Our guy is huddled on the floor, calling for help while she tries to calm him down. Ale then asks if he finally believes she's the Demon King now. Subai doesn't even answer and just begs her to spare his life. After they calm down, he asks how she's here if she was sent away 3 years ago. She explains that there are 4 Demon Kings, and she's not the one who was banished. Our hero is a bit more relieved and asks if she plans on attacking humans. The girl then confesses that she actually really enjoys living on Earth, because here there are way more fun things to do and she loves her streams. That's why she asks him again to be her manager and help her channel grow. Subai remembers the promise but is still a little hesitant about the job. Even so, he gets pensive, seeing the hopeful look in the girl's eyes. He thinks she's kind of a ditz, but being a Demon King is great for marketing. And since he can't just leave the wall broken forever, he finally makes up his mind. Narrator, protagonist then accepts the offer but warns her that there's a condition. Our protagonist starts laying down his rules for the work contract. The main condition is simple. She fixes the wall, and the deal is over. Era gets super excited about the proposal and wags her tail, agreeing immediately. She then jumps on him, accepting all the terms and the contract period. The girl is so happy she says she wants to keep going even after paying off the debt. Our hero finally agrees and decides to get started on the work right away. A moment later, he hands Ale the contract to read carefully and sign. He points to where she should put her signature and mentions there's more on the back. But she doesn't even bother to read it and starts signing while he yells for her to stop. Narrator Ale finishes signing, and our protagonist has a look of pure despair on his face. She then proudly shows off her signature, which she's been practicing since she was a kid to be famous. Subai asks if she read the contract before signing, and she says no. The girl says she trusts him to handle it, and he gives a very mischievous smile. Our hero pinches her cheeks and scolds her for signing without reading. He chews her out for being so reckless and not thinking about the consequences. Our protagonist thinks she's a Demon King in name only and is nothing but a goofball. Ale defends herself, saying she just wanted to lock down the contract no matter what. So Subai decides to rewrite the contract and asks her to sit next to him. The girl is thrilled and rushes over to him to hear the explanation. After sitting down, our hero starts explaining the terms of the agreement. First, he says everything will be temporary and that he'll handle all the planning. The only condition is that she participates in all the content without any complaints. The contract will last until the wall is fixed, and then they'll figure out the future. When everything is ready for the signature, he notices a small problem. Our guy then asks her to hold out her hand, and the girl is confused. He takes her hand, leaving Ale blushing and bewildered by the situation. Narrator, the girl desperately asks why he needs her hand to sign. He explains that it's better to use a thumbprint to avoid any issues with the signature. Ale gets embarrassed and says that using a thumbprint is like a blood pact. Our hero understands that's what they call contracts in the demon world. Ale prepares for the blood pact, all nervous, but Do-hyun calms her down. The two then seal the contract with their thumbprints, promising not to betray each other. She's overjoyed with the pact, and our hero finds the whole idea pretty funny. He then hands a copy of the contract to the girl to keep in a safe place. Ale holds the paper as if it were a treasure, the proof of their pact. Our protagonist then introduces himself as Kang Do-hyun and extends his hand. She shakes his hand and says she's counting on his help too. Right after that handshake, the scene changes completely to a cold place. Suddenly, Ale appears in the middle of a snow-covered mountain and is furious. Do-hyun is there too and reveals that this is their first piece of content. The girl is fuming and breathless from the intense cold of the place. She then screams, asking what kind of stream they're going to do in all this ice. The snowy mountain seems to be the first challenge from our new manager. Narrator, Ale then turns around and starts yelling her new partner's name. But when she looks back, she realizes he has simply vanished into thin air. The narrator Ale screams in desperation until she finds Do-hyun frozen in a block of ice, calling for help. She then uses her power to melt it all, and our hero breaks free, scared to bits. Immediately after, the girl gets furious and wants to know why they ended up there. After all, they were in the middle of a completely frozen and dangerous place. She says everyone gave up on streaming here, but he says that's exactly why he chose it. Our guy then reveals that his grand plan is, in fact, Ale herself. The girl is completely confused and gets annoyed by his mysterious answer. Do-hyun explains that to make real money, they need to be in the top 100. However, the most famous streamers in the ranking had millions of loyal followers, and Ale's channel was so small it didn't even show up on the leaderboard. On top of that, people's reactions were always negative when they tried to promote the channel. The only way to get a bigger audience would be through YouTube and video clips, since their best bet was to create epic moments that would go viral online. That's why the crazy plan was to climb that mountain and get some good clips from the adventure. Ale doubts that suffering in the cold would be entertaining, but Do-hyun guarantees the audience will love it. Do-hyun says she'll see when they get there and that it's not just a simple hike. Suddenly, Ale starts screaming desperately with tears in her eyes. A bunch of huge boulders are rolling toward her, ready to crush her. Meanwhile, our hero is calmly filming everything for the stream. He then yells for Ale to quickly dodge to the right and escape. The girl obeys at the last second and manages to save herself by a hair. Right after, he tells her to jump high and Ale leaps over another boulder. Do-hyun explains that the attack pattern is always the same, and she's confused. Our protagonist then reveals he researched everything about this place beforehand. He studied every detail of that planet from his room before the trip, especially the main content called the Snowfield of Laments. That's why he knows the next trap will be exactly like the last one. Do-hyun then asks if they should continue, and Ale gets annoyed by how calm he is. Narrator: he even tells her to think of it as a fun hike, but she strongly disagrees. After all, they were on a frozen planet that no one had ever conquered. The reason so many streamers gave up on this place was pretty simple. First, because of the extreme cold that was there all the time, and also because of the countless dangers of the snowfield. Ale then complains that the disasters happen in weird patterns. It was like she was controlling a video game character. Narrator: however, Do-hyun warns that the next trap will come straight from the ground, and suddenly, several giant ice spikes shoot up from the ground. He thought that since she was the Demon King, this would be a piece of cake. But his plan doesn't go as expected, and he sees he underestimated the challenge. Ale ends up getting stuck on the spikes and desperately calls for help. Our hero admits that the situation is much harder than he had imagined. He then runs to help and asks if the girl is okay. She says yes, but her clothes got stuck in the ice. Do-hyun is relieved and gets closer to free her from there. But as he tries to pull her, he realizes she's heavier than she looks. Ale turns bright red and yells that it's not what he's thinking. She defends herself, saying she's only heavy because her clothes are soaked. The girl then understands that the plan is to get through the dangers to get good clips. Our hero confirms this and says that if they pull it off, the views will skyrocket. Ale gets super excited about the idea and is ready to continue the journey. She asks him to guide her properly, but Do-hyun warns that there's a problem. Suddenly, an avalanche starts, and the girl panics, not knowing what to do. Our protagonist then reveals he doesn't know either because no one has ever made it past this point. Narrator: he explains that this was the farthest anyone had ever gotten. Our guy remembers that this is an unexplored planet full of surprises, so he throws all the responsibility on her and tells her to figure it out. But before he can finish his sentence, they're both hit by a wave of snow. Narrator: the ice explosion sends them both flying and the stream goes crazy. Do-hyun then asks why she isn't using her demon powers to solve this. Ale explains that her power isn't infinite, and she gets tired the more she uses it. Our hero questions her power, and Ale explains that the demonstration was just a small taste. Then, with a smile, she says she'll take care of the danger and tells him to relax. Seeing the girl's confidence, Do-hyun decides to believe in his partner's potential. But suddenly, a giant avalanche comes rushing toward the duo. And Lo then uses her incredible power and manages to stop the wave of snow all by herself. Right after, she asks why he's not filming such an epic moment. Our guy assures her he's recording everything, and the chat goes wild over the scene. Realizing their success, the two decide they'll try to reach the top of the mountain. After all, if they can clear the planet, their fame will be massive. The scene then cuts to a luxury house where someone had already posted the clips. A person was watching it all, wondering why they were risking so much. This is Yahello, a famous clipper with 12 million subscribers, who thinks they're nuts. Suddenly, her phone rings, and she answers, thinking it's another crazy person. On the other end of the line, Do-hyun asks if she doesn't know why he's calling. Narrator: he reminds her that their contract ends this month and tells her to watch the video to understand. Narrator: Yahello then watches the video and is shocked by the duo's courage. She wonders what she's looking at as she sees the image of the two on her phone. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears and recognizes Do-hyun immediately. Narrator: Yahello is surprised and asks if she knows our hero from somewhere. The woman says that if they show the top of the mountain, they'll steal all the attention, and that would be a huge problem for the other streamers who would be left behind. After all, streams had been pretty repetitive and stale lately, and if something so new and exciting suddenly appeared online, the competition would get much fiercer, and they could lose their spot. A group of streamers then gathers to discuss this new threat. They decide they need to find out the name of that channel as soon as possible. Meanwhile, on the mountain, our hero holds ale with a victorious smile. The scene cuts back to Yahello in her luxury home with a city view. A red-haired woman offers her coffee, but the clipper just complains that she doesn't want to work. She then tries to remember where she left off and that she needed to finish editing a video. The red-haired assistant decides to start working while taking a sip of coffee. But suddenly, she sees a news alert on the screen that leaves her completely shocked. It was information about the snowy mountain that our duo was exploring. And the bombshell news was that they had finally cleared the planet. The image showed the two of them, exhausted at the summit with a golden reward portal. Back on the mountain, Ale gets all shy and calls for Do-hyun's attention. She asks if he has anything to say, and our hero thanks her for her help. He then holds her in his arms and asks if she remembers how they got there. The girl is confused by the question and doesn't know how to answer. In a flashback, she says her memory ends right at that point in the journey. Do-hyun is shocked by her answer and doesn't understand what she means. He looks down, worried about the state the girl was in. He then remembers her passing out in the snow and running to help her. Our hero holds her in his arms and realizes she used too much power. He panics, not knowing what to do with Ale passed out and out of energy. In the present, our hero tries to wake up Ale, who's passed out on the ground. She then wakes up but says she doesn't have any strength left to continue. So Do-hyun offers his back to carry her the rest of the way. He says there's no other choice and that they're almost at the top. While being carried, Ale asks if he would have left her behind. Narrator, he denies it and carries her on his back while she films the rest of the climb. Finally, they reach the summit and clear the planet as planned. Do-hyun congratulates her, and Ale brags that it was all thanks to her. Then our guy shows her something on his phone screen. The girl looks closely at the screen with her eyes wide open. She then sees a shower of donations for the completed mission and is shocked. Ale celebrates that the money is more than enough to fix the wall. Do-hyun says the repair isn't that expensive, but seems a bit down. But she explains that she needs to recharge the authority she used in the fight. Our hero asks how she does that, and the girl gets a little mysterious. Our hero is curious to know what the girl's big secret is. She then gets close to him with a very suggestive look and closes her eyes. The scene cuts back to the apartment and Elle is marveling at something. She's in total shock at what she's seeing right in front of her. It turns out Do-hyun prepared a table full of sweets and cakes for her. She then explains that she needs to eat a lot of sweets to recover her energy. Our guy is surprised and asks if that's how she recharges her power. She compares sugar to a nutrient for the brain and says it's similar. Ale claims that's how the demon race works and he accepts it. After all the chaos, he hopes their subscriber count has gone up. Suddenly, our hero's eyes go wide, and he jumps up in shock. Ale is confused by his reaction and asks if she did something wrong. Narrator, he then shows her his phone screen and says the result doesn't make any sense. The number of followers had jumped to over 10,000 in a very short time. Our guy explains that the original goal was just 3,000, and the result was insane. Our hero explains that it's very rare for a spike in views to turn into subscriptions. Suddenly, Ale grabs him and tells him to look at something important. She shows him her phone and asks why they're on YouTube. A famous clipper had posted a clip of them that went viral on the platform. They finally understand the reason for the sudden increase in followers. Do-hyun gets super excited and says they need to create a channel right now. He approaches her with a determined look full of new ideas. Our guy holds Ale by the shoulders, ready to start the new project. But she reminds him that they had already given up on YouTube due to a lack of money. But now he says it's the perfect time, and Ale asks about the donations. Do-hyun then reveals that he spent all the money they earned on sweets. Our hero starts thinking of a solution, pacing back and forth. He gets thoughtful, adjusting his glasses and looking for a way out of the problem. Until suddenly, he has a brilliant idea, and a smile appears on his face. Our guy says he thought of someone, and the scene cuts to the red-haired assistant. The red-haired assistant, Suk, seems really annoyed about something she saw. She then explains that she has an old friend who just dropped off the face of the earth. And out of nowhere, he became an internet celebrity for starting to stream again. Suk is furious because he vanished and came back without any explanation. But right then, her phone rings, and the call is from Kang Do-hyun himself. A person on the video call asks if he was the one who called, and she confirms it. Sok then apologizes and postpones the counseling session she was having. The person on the screen says goodbye and tells her not to forget to call back later. The girl then gets up, determined to find our protagonist. She leaves the house, ready to confront her long-lost friend. Suk arrives at the location and says she wants to see his face right now. Our hero asks if she called him there just for that, and she gets flustered. With a blushing face, she can barely look him in the eye from embarrassment. She then picks up her drink and calls his name angrily. Next, she throws the entire drink right in our protagonist's face. Our hero is soaking wet and tries to dry himself with his hands, but it's no use. Suke then throws the rest of the drink on him with a smile and tells him to get lost. He just stands there with his hair dripping and a helpless look on his face. She then throws a napkin at him and says he's got a lot of nerve. because after disappearing for 3 years, he still had the audacity to ask for help. Suk is furious with the situation and wonders if our hero has lost his mind. Narrator, he tries to explain that it's all a big misunderstanding, but she remembers that he broke up with his girlfriend, shut down his channel, and vanished without a word. Narrator, the girl then asks which part of the story is the supposed misunderstanding. Suk demands an explanation and wants to know why he disappeared for so long. Do-hyun apologizes and says he was really busy with other things. He then reveals that he had to complete his mandatory military service. The girl doesn't believe him and thinks it's just another one of his lame excuses. She leans over the table, ready to hear the rest of the story he was about to tell. Our hero then confesses he joined the army out of embarrassment from getting dumped. He continues explaining that he was ashamed to contact her after everything. Our guy tries to apologize again, but she cuts him off before he can finish. Seok then gets all flustered and complains that he should have just been honest. But now calmer, she asks if he wants her to edit the videos for his channel. But Do-hyun reveals that the job isn't for his channel, leaving her confused. Our hero says she should be arriving any minute and that Suk has already seen her online. He then tries to explain, saying she just stopped by somewhere. Do-hyun introduces Ale and asks Suk to take care of the girl's channel. The girl then introduces herself and says she's heard great things about her. Suk replies with a very suspicious, "Nice to meet you." Immediately after, she gets furious and asks if he's being serious. After all, she can't believe he wants her to manage another channel. Do-hyun then reminds her that demons aren't allowed on Earth. The red-haired girl then looks at Ale with a not-so-friendly expression. Suk threatens her and tells her to turn herself in before she gets reported. Ale then starts to explain the whole situation, very nervously. She reveals that the demon king who attacked 3 years ago was named Whis, and she explains that she is one of the 4 demon kings that exist in total. The demon realm is divided among 4 kings, and Whis was the king of the north. However, the others wanted peace, so only the demons from the north were banned. Ale then explains that she is the demon king of the south, which is why she can stay on Earth. Our hero confirms the story and asks if Suk wants to be her editor. Suk understands the situation but doesn't seem too happy with the offer. She turns down the job, saying she's already managing another channel. And she also asks why she should take on Ale's channel if it's not even Do-hyun's. The white-haired girl says it seems like they're doing everything together. The 3 of them are at a stalemate while our hero tries to think of a solution. Narrator, he knows that if the 2 of them keep arguing, Suk will never accept the job. So Do-hyun explains that Ale only does the streams, and he handles everything else. Sukuk looks a bit embarrassed but still doesn't seem convinced by the idea. Narrator, he keeps trying and pulls out his phone to show her something. Our guy says she's the only one he trusts for this job, because he feels more comfortable working with her and asks for a chance. He then asks Ale to help out and give a quick compliment to convince the girl. Ale gets nervous but says she thinks Suk is amazing and that she's seen all her videos. Ale praises Suk's work and says there are no boring parts in her videos. The red-haired girl gets all flustered, and our hero seizes the opportunity to insist. He then throws himself into her arms and begs her to take the job. Suke gets super embarrassed and doesn't know how to react to the situation. Pressured from all sides, she finally yells that she accepts the job. The 2 celebrate the partnership, but the red-haired girl is already thinking about something else. She then gets straight to the point and asks what her salary will be. Our hero gets all awkward and says that payment is complicated. Suk immediately realizes that something is wrong with this story. Suddenly, Do-hyun's phone rings, interrupting the conversation. He apologizes for a second and picks up the phone to answer. Our guy wonders who could be calling him at this hour. Narrator, he tries to pass the buck to Ale to explain the plan, but the girl apologizes. Ale then asks how the story got to this point so quickly. Suk complains that his trick is always the same: work now, get paid later. Our hero tries to calm Suk down, saying the plan is solid and there are still donations. The red-haired girl says she understands, but that Ale needs to discuss the details with him. Narrator, meanwhile, Do-hyun answers a call and seems very worried about the conversation. Suk then thinks that our protagonist hasn't changed at all, and that Ale is just another one. The white-haired girl eats a sweet, but the redhead just thinks that women never stop. She then asks Ale what her relationship is with our guy. Suk even hints that the 2 might be dating, and Ale panics. She denies it immediately and explains that they're neighbors and she hired him as her manager. The redhead gives a hidden little laugh at the girl's flustered response. She then stretches and says she understands the situation and that Do-hyun is just the boss. But suddenly, our hero comes running back, screaming Ale's name desperately. Suk is startled by the scream, and he warns them that they have a big problem. With a very serious face, our guy reveals that the problem is about the wall. The 2 girls are completely confused, not understanding a thing about that story. Do-hyun finishes the sentence with a smile of pure panic plastered on his face. Our hero then reveals that the apartment wall completely collapsed. Outside, Ale is freaking out, and Do-hyun doesn't know what to do. Because of this, he can't get the security deposit back, and Ale could be deported. Our guy is super stressed because they have nowhere to go now. Narrator, he then apologizes to Suk and asks for some time to think of a solution. However, the girl says that thinking won't help since they're out on the street. Then, With a mischievous smile, she says they have no other choice. Next, Suk invites them to live at her house until they get everything sorted out. Our protagonist and Ale are completely shocked by her offer. The white-haired girl panics and can't believe what she just heard. The scene then cuts to the luxurious house where the two will be living now. Do-hyun says she scared him, and Suk doesn't see any reason for surprise. She explains it's only until the house is repaired, but Ale doesn't agree, because she thinks the way Suka said it sounded very strange. Ale gets all red in the face and thinks the whole situation is way too shameless. Suk replies that Ale is the real shameless one, and the girl is confused. She then tells the girl to stop making noise while she carries a box. The redhead flirts with our hero, but he refuses her help right away. She then asks why, and he says it was just for fun. Sue comments that it must have been tough for him to carry everything up to the second floor. And because of that, she informs them that they'll both have to use the same floor of the house. After a while, all of their luggage is inside the new room. On top of that, all their clothes and belongings have also been organized. Our protagonist thanks them for their help and congratulates them both on their work. Ale is super emotional and thanks Suk for saving her life. Our guy just watches the scene with a thoughtful look on his face. He remembers that the wall fell down when they accidentally tried to fix it. But luckily, the landlord agreed to have them back without reporting them. Our hero then goes to the kitchen to get something from the fridge. Suk then calls them both over for a drink to celebrate their new living arrangement. With a smile on her face, Suk asks if they're up for the celebration. Our guy and Ale just stand there, staring at her, not knowing what to say. Do-hyun then agrees with the idea and Ale says she'd love to join. And so the night begins with the trio gathered in the living room, drinking and talking. Soon, several empty cans are scattered across the coffee table. Suk then looks at our protagonist and calls him an idiot. She complains that he's a clueless guy who never changes. Suddenly, she pinches Ale's cheeks and says she finds her very cute. Our hero agrees, and Suk excuses herself to use the restroom real quick. Airi then says it's time for her to go to bed because she's very tired. She asks him to call her when it's time to clean up the whole mess. Suk tells her not to worry because our guy will clean everything up by himself. Do-hyun agrees, and the girl says goodnight and heads to her new room. The two then continue the party, eating chips and drinking a bit more. Our hero then says her name in a much more serious tone. Our hero then thanks Suk for everything and for letting them stay at her house, but she gets annoyed by the sappiness and says it gave her goosebumps. Our guy gets embarrassed, and she admits that having them there is a hassle. However, she'd rather keep him close so he doesn't disappear again like before. Do-hyun apologizes once more and gets all red-faced about the situation. The red-haired girl then looks at him with a very nostalgic and curious expression. She then asks if he remembers their childhood, and the scene changes to a school. He remembers her nickname was Water Purifier because she cried so much. Suk says that he was the one who spoke to her first and helped her make friends. The girl also remembers that they played video games together every day. She then says she had a lot of fun with him and makes a peace sign with her fingers. Back in the present, Suk says they've both grown up a lot since then. Our hero agrees but gets all nervous and doesn't know what to say. Suddenly, he realizes the two of them are sitting very close to each other, so he tells her she's too close, and Suk is surprised by the warning. Our hero asks if she wants to go inside since she's a bit drunk, but she says no. Suka then moves even closer, and our guy gets nervous about her actions. With a smile, she asks him to wait a bit and leans in toward him. The two are about to have a romantic moment when something happens. Because right then, Ale shows up asking where the bathroom is, killing the mood. Suk gets startled and points the way while the girl thanks her and leaves. Now alone, the two of them are left in a very awkward silence in the living room. Our protagonist then sighs and says her name once more. He gets up and says he needs to get some fresh air to clear his head. Alone, Suk freaks out and wonders what she just did because of the drinks. She hides her face in shame, and the scene flashes back to the past at school. Back then, someone had stuck a note on her back, making fun of her nickname. Her classmates laughed at her, and the girl was very sad about the situation. She felt very lonely and had tears in her eyes all the time. But suddenly, a young Do-hyun appears behind her to change everything. Suk keeps reminiscing about the past and looks to the side with a sad gaze. Back in the present, she finds the whole situation very awkward and embarrassing. She then takes another sip of her drink to try to forget what happened. Sukwood wonders if she did all that just because she was very drunk at the time. Suddenly, Ale appears and asks if she's okay, startling the redhead. The white-haired girl wants to know where our hero is so she can talk to him. Suk then explains that Do-hyun went outside to get some fresh air. Ale says she's going after him right away, and Suk tells him to come back inside soon. The girl runs to the backyard and calls out our protagonist's name. However, she's startled by what she sees and has a look of pure panic. Desperate, Ale runs back inside and yells that a huge disaster has happened. Suka asks what's wrong, but the girl denies that it's about the contract. With a trembling voice, she tries to explain what happened to our hero. The redhead gets very worried and waits anxiously for the answer. Ale then screams that our protagonist was kidnapped right in front of her. Suk doesn't believe it and asks if she really saw him get taken by a van. The redhead then gets furious and asks why Ale didn't do anything since she's a demon king. Suk then wants to know if she saw the license plate, but Ale gets nervous. In a flashback, we see the white van driving away without any license plate. However, on the side of the vehicle, there was some writing in Korean that caught her eye. Suddenly, the girl remembers what she saw and yells to Suk that she knows something. The redhead gets desperate and demands to know what was written on the side of the van. The scene then cuts to an area with a lighthouse where Suk is rushing Ale to hurry up. The white-haired girl is out of breath and asks if she's sure about the location. With a determined look, Suka claims he has to be there because Ale saw the clue. The redhead then remembers that Ale saw the name written on the car that kidnapped him. The writing actually meant "Welcome to the Dragon Palace." That's why the two of them ended up in front of a giant palace with that name. It was already night, and the moon was shining in the sky as they planned the rescue. Meanwhile, our hero was sitting alone on a bench outside the place. Our hero thinks about Suk and worries about her drinking habits. Narrator, he then remembers the moment they almost kissed in the living room. The scene was so intense that he was left wondering if it was real or not. Still on the bench, he questions whether the girl really likes him. But right after, our guy starts laughing, thinking the idea is pretty silly, because he can't believe she would like him with a maid watching him. After all, they've known each other for a long time, since their school days. Suddenly, a hand touches his shoulder, and a mysterious voice calls him. Our protagonist turns around, startled, and is grabbed by the strange woman. She greets him, and our hero asks who she is, completely confused. The girl then reveals she came to ask for a favor and proposes marriage to him. Do-hyun is shocked and doesn't understand the proposal or how she knows his name. However, the woman says he has already agreed to her crazy proposal. She then shows him her phone as proof and says the deal is sealed. Next, two monsters appear and our hero realizes it was a setup. The mysterious maid gives our hero a very sinister smile. Narrator, he then begs for his life as the full moon shines in the sky. Back at the house, Ale calls for Do-hyun but gets no response. She wanted to talk to him, but the guy had simply disappeared. While searching the backyard, she finds him tied up inside a car. The white-haired girl panics and screams desperately. She then runs back inside and announces that he's been kidnapped by the Dragon Palace. Ale is very agitated and doesn't understand Suk's calmness about the situation. The redhead explains she's calm because she knows exactly where that place is. She then tells the girl to go to sleep because they need to wake up early the next day, because Suk plans to catch the first train in the morning to solve the problem. Ale then agrees and says goodnight to her new friend. The night passes and the sky is already starting to brighten, heralding a new day. The two arrive at their destination faster than Ale expected. Suk then reveals that the palace is on Earth and that there are stories about it. Suk then asks if Ale knows the legend of the rabbit's liver. With a smile, she starts telling the story to the curious girl. She explains that the Dragon King got sick and needed a rabbit's liver. Ale doesn't understand why a rabbit, and Suk reveals the grim reason. Because in the legend, the liver was the only cure for the king's fatal illness. Narrator, Suk then connects the dots and realizes the story is very similar to the kidnapping. That's why she warns that our protagonist's liver might be in danger. Ale starts crying desperately at the possibility, and Suk is startled. The white-haired girl screams that they need to hurry up and save him. Suk then reveals it was all a joke and that the story was made up. She also says she's worked with the people from the palace before and they're good people. Ale is more relieved by the news and listens intently to the explanation. Suk says the palace appeared 3 years ago with the arrival of the aliens. She says the mermaids there are nice and that the place became a tourist spot. That's why she thinks our hero is safe, but she's not sure about her guess. Sok is pensive about his safety but isn't very sure. Little does she know, our hero is tied up inside the palace. Our guy tries to break free, but his hands and feet are tightly bound. He then looks around, completely confused and not understanding the situation. The place looks like an ancient temple with very chic and luxurious decorations. Suddenly, a voice calls him and asks if he's finally awake. It's the maid who kidnapped him, and she introduces herself as Wave, the successor to the palace. With a smile on her face, she says she's hoping for his cooperation. Our hero tries to say something, but the girl realizes he's gagged. She then approaches and removes the gag so he can finally speak. Our guy is free to talk and calls her Miss Wave, very confused. He then bluntly asks why she kidnapped him like that. The girl gets a bit awkward and replies that it wasn't the palace that kidnapped him. In fact, she reveals it was a direct order from the Dragon King himself. Our hero is in shock, and the girl warns him that question time is over. Wave then puts the gag back in our hero's mouth, and then she asks him not to struggle too much because it won't do any good. She puts him in a cart and informs him that they're going to see the Dragon King. Our guy tries to get free, but the maid takes him away without any trouble. Meanwhile, Suk and Ale finally arrive at the Grand Dragon Palace. The two get out of the taxi and Suka thanks the driver before they continue. However, the redhead finds it strange, and Ale asks if they went to the wrong place. The palace was completely empty even though it was peak hours with no tourists. Ale then calls Suk's attention to something she saw in front of them. Suddenly, a fish-faced guard appears and the girl points him out immediately. Ale says it was that fish that kidnapped our hero and that she's going to handle it. With tears in her eyes, she promises she'll resolve the situation once and for all. The fish guard just stares at them, not understanding what's going on. But Suk stops her and says she doesn't need to do that because everything is fine. The redhead then points to the ticket booth and explains that humans get in for free there. As a demon, Ale pays the 5,001 fee to the fish guard. However, Sook gets annoyed by the delay and tells the girl to hurry up. Ale is confused because she didn't understand why her friend was telling her off. Narrator Sook then complains that she was too harsh about the guard's appearance. Once inside the palace, they notice the place is also quite empty. Sook remembers that they tried to attract tourists with various specialties, but since everything was so boring, the place's popularity dropped quickly. The two then start looking for our hero, not knowing where to start. Sook suggests using a rule of thumb to guide them, and Ale doesn't understand how she knows. Suddenly, a strange noise catches the two girls' attention. They wonder if the sound came from our protagonist, who must be nearby. The two then look toward the source of the noise with great attention, and from a distance they can see the silhouette of our hero tied up. Narrator calls out to him, but Sook is furious at the scene she's witnessing. With great anger, she points and says he's right there with the maid. Ale points at the scene and is completely shocked by what she sees. Our hero is hugging Wave and asks what she's doing. The maid then calls Sook a meddler for ruining the moment. Our guy gets embarrassed and Sook sarcastically calls him brave. The redhead complains that he's just chilling while they were worried sick. Ale is also furious at the scene and his lack of shame. Our protagonist tries to explain, but Wave makes things worse with a lie. She says there's no problem since they're a married couple. Ale freaks out at the news and her white hair flies everywhere. Wave even says they've already greeted the Dragon King and made everything official. Our hero tries to explain himself, but Sook thinks he just got lucky. The redhead says it wasn't a kidnapping and that the maid just wanted him. Ale gets jealous and our protagonist doesn't like the comment at all. He gets angry at the accusations and a vein of rage pops on his forehead. Our guy then yells that it's nothing like that and it's all a misunderstanding. Our hero insists he was kidnapped and wanted nothing to do with Wave. Furthermore, he explains he never promised to marry her and refused the whole time. But the maid says he was just too shy to admit it. He even compliments her beauty but still doesn't understand the reason for the marriage. After all, our guy wouldn't marry someone who just kidnapped him out of the blue. Wave then stares at him, not understanding his question. Because to her, this is a completely normal way to get married. The revelation leaves our protagonists Sook and Ale with their jaws on the floor. The four of them stand there staring at each other in the middle of the grand hall. Wave then asks why they're all acting that way. The whole group falls silent, not knowing how to answer her question. The maid then starts explaining the reason for all the confusion. Because on her planet, it's normal to capture the groom and introduce him to the parents. And since he refused out of shyness, she thought he had accepted. Our protagonist is shocked and can't believe this crazy situation. Wave is confused because on Earth, that custom is not normal at all. Ale tries to calm her down, saying that cultural misunderstandings happen. Sook then asks if the white-haired girl has ever gone through something like this. With a smile, Ale denies it and says she's never done anything so barbaric. Wave then approaches our protagonist with a desperate look. She reveals that she really needs his help because she has a problem. It turns out the Dragon Palace has run out of mana, and she needs to do streams. She thinks that Ale, as a demon, would understand the delicate situation. The white-haired girl then asks why she needs mana so badly. Wave explains that they receive mana as donations on streams, but it's not money. Sook finds this strange, and our hero asks why Ale doesn't know about the importance of mana. The girl gets embarrassed and tries to explain, saying she's a demon. Our protagonist then decides to explain why aliens came to Earth. Because most species need mana to survive. However, at some point, mana started disappearing from the entire universe. Then they discovered a planet full of mana called Earth. Mana is a byproduct of strong emotions, and humans produce a lot of it. However, humans can't use or feel this powerful energy. So, the other species made a very fair trade proposal. Thus began the live streams that became a huge hit. Our hero confirms the information is written exactly like that on the wiki. So, the viewers get entertainment and the streamers get mana and money. Ale thinks the trade is unfair, but Sook explains that alien technology helped. They brought portals and other technologies that revolutionized the world. Sook then asks how Ale used magic on the mountain without mana. Ale corrects her, saying it wasn't magic but a divine demon power. She reveals she can use this power without mana, but passes out afterward. Sook then starts arguing with Ale for not explaining this earlier. Ale understands that mana doesn't matter to demons, but it's different in the palace. Wave then reveals that they used to get mana through tourism at the location. Wave explains that without tourists they can no longer get mana to survive. That's why her plan is to get mana from streams and promote the palace with Dohyeon. Narrator Sook is thoughtful about the explanation but still doesn't seem very convinced. The redhead asks what this has to do with the marriage, since he could just be the manager. But Wave says the fate of the palace is at stake, and as a partner, he would be more dedicated. Our hero then says the decision is his and that Sook has no right to argue. The girl gets furious and wants to know what her relationship is with our guy to say that. Narrator jumps into the conversation, saying it's not like they don't have a bond. She yells that the two of them have a blood pact, but then frantically denies everything. Wave then looks at the two of them with a look that says she knew this would happen. The maid then reveals she'll do whatever it takes to have Dohyeon because she's desperate. She then throws the same question at Ale, wanting to know what she would do. The white-haired girl doesn't back down and says she can handle the challenge with no problem. The two of them get ready for a fight, their hands ready for combat. But Do-hyun gets between them and tells everyone to stop the fight right now. Our hero then raises a finger and makes a proposal to the two girls. He says they're going to compete and the winner will become the manager. Ale is furious and he explains that the winner will have him as her manager. And on top of that, the winner will also get Suk as their editor. The red-haired girl is completely confused, not understanding what's happening. Suk tries to protest, but our guy continues with his crazy plan. The narrator, he then asks if the two of them are really going to participate in the competition. Wave accepts immediately, as she sees no reason to refuse the offer. She says she'll compete for the Dragon Palace to get Do-hyun. Ale thinks our hero must have some secret plan in mind. So, with great determination, she yells that she'll compete too. Our guy then says he'll call them when everything is ready. Narrator, Suk asks what he's thinking with this crazy idea. She then grabs him angrily and demands an explanation before anything else, but he just smiles and says there's only one thing they need to prepare. The competition then begins, and Sukun introduces herself as the editor for Ale's channel. She reveals that today's content is a contest with the manager as the prize. Next up, the first competitor is the great demon king Ale, and her opponent is the mermaid Wave, representing the Dragon Palace. The two will now face off in a live match with everything on the line. Ale looks a bit shy but seems determined to accept our hero's challenge, because basically Do-hyun's plan is to hold the competition at the Dragon Palace. Wave then asks if the idea is for her and Ale to compete in a stream. Our hero corrects her, saying it's not a regular stream but a live match. He then asks if Wave already has a channel, and she confirms she made one for promotion. Our guy is relieved because with a channel, there won't be any more problems. He then says that Ale can send the request for the live match right now. However, Sukun interrupts him and says you need to have over 10,000 subscribers for that. He shows that her channel already hit 11,000 after the Mountain and Yoel's help. The redhead is shocked by the growth, and Ale calls for our hero's attention. The three of them stand there together while Suk is still processing all the information. The white-haired girl then gets shy and says she's curious about something. She then asks what exactly a live match is, leaving everyone surprised. Our protagonist then realizes that Ale might not know what that is. After all, a live match is an official format on the Terrarium streaming platform. Narrator, he then explains that it's a broadcast where streamers compete in random categories, and even though it's like a friendly match, sometimes things get really serious. Because the platform promotes the event with banners and turns it into a big show. Plus, if you're entertaining enough, you can even steal your opponent's viewers. Narrator Ayn understands the gravity of the situation and says she can't give up her viewers. Suk then tries to calm her down, saying that fans don't usually switch channels like that. She compares the matches to a special event, like a pro wrestling match, and she also adds another important detail about the competition's rules. Narrator, the 10,000 subscriber rule exists precisely to prevent abuse of the platform. Because if anyone could issue a challenge, the system would get totally overloaded. Wave then takes the opportunity to ask Do-hyun a very important question. Our hero now understands how it all works, but she still has a doubt. She wants to know who decides the judge in the category, as that could be manipulated. Our guy reassures her and says the platform itself sends an impartial judge. And right on cue, he says that the judge should be arriving for the showdown any minute now. Our hero announces that a judge is coming, but no one expected this. Because suddenly, a floating robot appears, getting ready for the live match. On top of that, today's commentator is a professional announcer from Terrarium. The robot then introduces itself as the adorable Yopi and promises to commentate fairly. Right after, it explains that the category will be chosen randomly. A roulette wheel appears with options sent by the streamers and the audience. With the wheel spinning, the chat goes crazy, wanting to know what this round's challenge is. Narrator, the tension builds as the wheel slowly comes to a stop. And finally, it lands on one of the categories to decide today's game. With a smile, the announcer declares that the chosen game is tag. Wave is a bit surprised and embarrassed by the random choice of challenge. The game area will be the Dragon Palace and will last for 2 hours in total. The game is simple, and Ale starts as the it person for the match. Meanwhile, Wave will be the runner and needs to escape her opponent. The roles can be reversed, and whoever is it at the end loses the competition. Additionally, the person who is it cannot move for 1 minute at the start of the game. With the rules explained, Wave gives her opponent a confident smile. The announcer then gets ready to start the live match between the two. And so the great competition at the Dragon Palace finally begins. Ale doesn't know Do-hyun's plan, but she's focused on her opponent. After all, she's competing against a mermaid in her home territory. The girl then checks the broadcast and starts the match for real. The timer starts counting down, and Ale prepares for the challenge. However, she notices that Wave, the runner, isn't moving an inch. Ale thinks the girl is joking around and taking it easy on her, so she gets closer and yells for Wave to run because she's the runner. But the mermaid replies that she knows the rules and has a reason for staying put. With a smile, she reveals she just wants to win the competition fairly, because playing in the Dragon Palace would be a huge advantage for her, so she'll be it herself, and Ale can run for 5 minutes. Wave says that this way it will be easier for Ale to accept her defeat. She also insists that the girl should take advantage of the big head start she received. Ale then makes a sour face and gets annoyed by the taunt, so she grabs the tag baton and tells Wave to shut up immediately. Filled with anger, our girl yells that the mermaid is going to regret this big time. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the palace, the conversation was quite different. Suk asks Do-hyun what the plan is if Ale loses the competition. Narrator, he says it doesn't matter, but the redhead doesn't seem to understand what he means. Suk then gets really annoyed and demands a clearer explanation from him. Our hero just repeats that it doesn't matter if the white-haired girl loses. Back in the game, Ale is already running at high speed through the palace. However, she complains to Do-hyun that running like that is very tiring. She then wonders if Wave has started moving to come after her yet, but the mermaid is yawning, standing in the same spot without any rush. The tag baton is still on the ground and time keeps ticking away. There, the mermaid finally decides to start moving and go after Ale. The panoramic view shows the scale of the challenge our girl is about to face. Sok then asks if Ale can handle Wave, since agility isn't her strong suit. The two of them are watching everything with a giant rabbit-faced person observing. Our hero then recognizes the rabbit and is shocked by his appearance. The mysterious rabbit is there to watch the competition between the two girls. Meanwhile, Ale is running desperately to try and escape her opponent. With a determined look, she tries to keep her distance from Wave as much as possible. Narrator, however, her adversary is known as the fastest assassin of her people. Not even a demon king like her can compare to the mermaid's speed. So with great confidence, Wave says she's going to take our hero with her. The scene then cuts back to the panoramic view of the palace again. Suk then grabs Do-hyun and asks if he's gone completely insane. She grabs his shirt tightly, unable to accept her friend's attitude. Filled with rage, she wants to know if he really wants to become Wave's manager. Our hero tries to explain himself, but the red-haired girl doesn't seem to understand. She then yells that his attitude makes no sense and holds on to him. The scene then flashes back to a moment right after the category was announced. In a flashback, our guy went to talk to Wave, and she asks if he has surrendered. Do-hyun denies surrendering and says he's actually there for another reason. Narrator, he then makes a proposal and asks if she wants to pull a prank. But the mermaid refuses on the spot, and our hero is shocked by her answer. She says that since she's going to win, there's no reason to accept his proposal. Our guy then says that victory won't do her any good. Wave is confused and wants to know what he means by that statement. Narrator, he explains that it would take about 6 months to grow her channel on its own, because Ale's growth was a rare case due to Yoruru's help. That's why our hero suggests a much faster way to solve everything. The plan is to use the stream to promote the palace and Wave's channel. And in the end, she reveals that it was all just a big promotion. Wave then thinks about the proposal for a bit and decides it's not a bad deal. Back in the present, Suk understands that he negotiated everything with Wave beforehand. The red-haired girl laughs and says he should have told her the plan from the start. Our hero then takes her hand so they can go watch the competition up close. Suk is completely confused by his action and doesn't understand the rush. Narrator, he then asks where she thinks she's going and says they need to get to Ale. Meanwhile, the girl is already exhausted and has destroyed part of the palace. She can barely breathe from running so much and exhaustion has hit her hard. Ale then begs Wave to let herself be caught and tells the chat to be quiet. The mermaid points out that if she keeps breaking things, it's going to be a problem, because if the palace is destroyed, there will be nothing left to promote in the end. Wave then moves quickly towards her exhausted opponent. Suddenly, she throws a piece of paper in Ale's face, who is left completely stunned. The white-haired girl picks up the paper and sees that it's a map of the palace. The map shows all the tourist spots and attractions of the Grand Place. Wave then explains that she will only move between the tourist spots on the map, and on top of that, she will give Isle a chance at each of the locations. The mermaid says that a game with a predictable outcome is no fun at all. With a smile, she reminds her that the most important thing is entertainment. The white-haired girl then thinks for a moment about the crazy proposal. Soon after, she agrees and says that Wave is absolutely right about the show. Ale then takes off her jacket and says that a streamer's job is to entertain the audience. Wave calls out to her and our girl replies that she's ready for whatever comes her way. However, she gets embarrassed and says that trying to win with her body is too much. Ale defends herself, saying she's just wearing what she has, and gets annoyed by the comment. The mermaid then stops joking around since Ale has already agreed to the idea. With everything settled, they finally get ready to head to the first mission. Wave takes off running, and Ale yells for her to stop but chases her closely. The two then arrive at their destination, and the chat comments on their speed. Our hero then realizes that Ale is doing better than he had imagined. Ale is completely confused and wonders what that place is. Wave then reveals that this is the first tourist attraction of the palace, and the place looks pretty tasty, with several grilled squids on the coals. The mermaid explains that they are in the palace's food district. She notices that Ale is hungry and the girl confirms it, all embarrassed. That's why Wave says they can start the first bet of the competition. Ale is shocked and asks what kind of bet they are going to make there. But the mermaid is mysterious and says she'll find out when she tries. After the challenge, Ale is shocked and can't believe what happened. Wave asks what the problem is, and the girl is furious with how calm she is. After all, the bet was just to endure the challenge for a single minute, but it seems that minute was an eternity for our girl, because she yells that the takoyaki was way too hot and she can't take it. The challenge was to eat 10 of the octopus balls in under a minute, but there was a catch. Ale complains that she burned her mouth, but Wave just asks if it was good. With tears in her eyes, Ale admits that yes, it was very delicious. Wave then reveals that it's the best takoyaki because it's the palace's specialty. She then takes the opportunity to advertise it, and Ale is confused by her attitude. The mermaid explains that these are adult circumstances, and the chat feels sorry for her. She then declares that the first bet was Ale's loss and that they will continue. However, before they leave, our white-haired girl calls out Wave's name. Suddenly, Ale lunges forward and yells that the mermaid let her guard down too much. But Wave isn't fazed at all and stands with her eyes closed, waiting for the attack. With a cry of victory, Ale thinks she has finally caught her opponent. But the mermaid dodges with ease and Ale goes flying past her. Our girl ends up falling to the ground in a very awkward and funny position. The impact of the fall is so strong that she accidentally destroys a food stall. Wave then turns around and asks if the white-haired girl is okay. She even apologizes for dodging out of instinct and asks if Ale got hurt. And finally, she complains that Ale can't go around breaking the entire palace. Wave greets our hero, who has finally arrived at the competition site. She then asks if Suka didn't come with him, and he seems very tired. Our guy explains that the redhead was too slow, so he left her behind. Narrator, he then wants to know what happened, and Wave says it was nothing major, but she points to the wreckage and reveals that Ale destroyed 2 buildings. Do-hyeon panics and asks where she is, and the mermaid points to the rubble. He runs to help and finds our girl completely beaten up amidst the mess. With her face all dirty, she apologizes for not being able to catch Wave. Our hero then asks why she destroyed the palace's structures. Ale gets annoyed because she thinks he only cares about the repair costs. Furious, she pushes him away and says she's had enough of this situation. The girl then claims she will catch Wave on her own without his help. Filled with anger, she tells our hero to just stand there and watch. Wave then looks at the white-haired girl with a very serious expression, and she warns that Ale will have to pay for all the damage she caused there. Our hero then says he'll clean up the mess for now. So complains that she needs to help, and our guy explains the reason for the training. The red-haired girl thinks that only Wave is having fun while Ale is suffering, but our protagonist reveals that the girl needs experience to grow, because over time she'll have more matches and needs to be prepared for anything. If she doesn't train now, she'll end up being devoured by stronger streamers. After all, you can't survive on Terrarium without winning live matches. Suk then understands that the plan was because he already knew Ale would lose. Our hero couldn't do anything because the category was very unfavorable. Meanwhile, our white-haired girl continues to get beaten up by Wave. Narrator says she would have a chance if she used mana, but Ale refuses. With a look of contempt, Wave comments that she didn't know demons were so pathetic. Ale gets furious and says they are strong without needing mana. Wave says she doesn't seem very convincing in her battered state, but our girl doesn't give up and promises she will catch the mermaid no matter what. Ale screams with all her might that she will catch Wave no matter what. However, the mermaid just closes her eyes with a very mocking smile on her face. She then says it's impossible and throws her far away without any difficulty. Our hero and Suk watch the scene and worry about the girl. The redhead then wonders if Ale can win even just once. The scene then cuts to a top-down view of the Dragon Palace, while Suk and our protagonist continue to observe the whole situation. Suddenly, Ale appears, soaking wet after another defeat. The mermaid then explains that they will continue with the challenges ahead. Our white-haired girl is devastated because she hasn't won a single time. The first challenge she lost was moving the water from the hot spring. Next, the girl also failed to pop the soap balloons. And to make matters worse, she also lost at Starfish Jenga. To complete the humiliation, a cheese donation arrives, making fun of her. Narrator, Ale then wonders why she didn't win anything even though she tried her best. Wave warns that there's no time to be down because there are only 20 minutes left. With a very serious face, she then announces that it's time for the final bet. Ale worries that if she loses again, everyone will abandon her for Wave. Narrator then suggests they use a theme that the palace has been promoting. Our girl gets super nervous about what this final bet might be. Suk speculates that it could be something from the ocean or even about catching a rabbit. Do-hyeon thinks that since it's something new, it might have no connection to the palace. He just hopes that Wave gives Ale a challenge she can actually win. Ale is determined to win the last bet, no matter what the theme is. Wave then picks up a bag to finally reveal the theme of the grand bet. Our girl looks on with great attention and prepares for whatever comes next. The mermaid reveals that the final bet is a maid outfit changing race. Ale is completely speechless and freezes upon hearing what the final challenge is. She then falls to her knees on the floor, totally shocked by that ridiculous theme. Our hero then approaches Wave with a very serious question about the bet. Our hero then asks what maid outfits have to do with the palace. Wave then asks if he knows the name of her race, and our guy confirms that he does. He then makes a joke and says she's from the mermaid maid race, and she agrees. Do-hyun yells for them to wait a minute before continuing with the bet. Ale is furious and complains that it's ridiculous to have to wear an outfit like that. However, the mermaid points to a changing room and says she can change comfortably in there. Our girl complains that she didn't even agree and that 5 minutes is way too short. She then asks Do-hyun for help, but he just wishes her good luck. Meanwhile, Suka's taking pictures and Ale complains that it's just to make fun of her. The two offer moral support, but our girl is dying of embarrassment over the situation. In the changing room, she wonders how she's going to wear that embarrassing outfit. With her face bright red, she prepares for the greatest challenge of her life. But Ale thinks she needs to do this if she wants to protect our protagonist. She then finally finishes getting dressed, and the result is surprising. However, the girl realizes the outfit doesn't fit right and doesn't know what to do. Wave then warns that time is running out and tells Ale to hurry up. Inside, our girl panics because the outfit doesn't fit at all. Our hero is waiting and thinks she's taking longer than usual. The mermaid then takes out her phone to check the time and put some pressure on. Suddenly, Ale comes out of the changing room and asks for Suka, but she's not there. The girl then grabs a curtain and pulls our hero inside, asking for help. Do-hyun is completely covered and doesn't understand what's going on. But when he opens his eyes, he's totally shocked by the scene in front of him. Because Ale is in the maid outfit and complains that she can't move. With tears in her eyes, she desperately begs for our hero's help.